Okay, first of all, let me say welcome to MindShifters Radio. Today is Friday, March the 13th, 2026, and we're glad that you're with us, and I'm sure some other people are going to pop in. Before I start, do you all have any questions or anything pop up yesterday or the day before or the day before? No?
Looks
Okay.
like we're all just all ears, sweetie.
Okay. If you'll watch the switchboard for people popping in.
I got it.
So the next section starts out, and I have like kind of summaries of what to expect, what's coming up in this next section. And so before we launch into the next four chapters, let me introduce the basic tenets on which they are based. And I'm going to attempt to, I've got it on my computer here, and I think that way I can be looking up and y'all aren't looking at the top of my head. So, um, so before we launch into these next four chapters, let me introduce the basic tenets on which they're based. Chapter 5 is called Our Perception of the World Comes from Our Own Mind. Since the very content of our own mind is what builds the world we perceive, by changing our mind, we can, in turn, change our world. With truth as our guide, we can reweave the tapestry of our lives, not only for ourselves, but for the generations that follow. Chapter 6 is Are we conditioned to behave a certain way? Understanding how we learn. Every organism has a central need in life, which is to maintain a natural state of balance called homeostasis. At its core, all behavior is an attempt to reestablish that balance. As the gap widens between how we perceive, how things are perceived, and how we want things to be, which we will call our goal or goals, stress inevitably increases. The greater the stress we feel, the stronger the motivation to bring perception back into alignment with the desired outcome. If a goal is set because of fearful or hostile conditioning, the result will almost always be a hostile or fear-based response toward whatever or whoever is perceived as causing the disruption. Unless the generational pattern is interrupted, learning to cancel the goal and thereby remove the stress is the essential first step toward changing our conditioning. Chapter 7 is called How Our Brain Builds Our Personality. Persona means mask, an appearance or performance we put on for an audience. Most of us adapt our behavior depending on the environment we find ourselves in, seeking approval or hoping to be seen in a favorable light. Removing the mask does not resolve the underlying issue. It merely changes the filter through which others view us. Personality, on the other hand, is far more complex. It is shaped by many dimensions of life: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, past and present, conscious and unconscious. The choices we make, driven by personality, inevitably shape our future in either positive or negative ways. Often behaviors emerge unconsciously, controlled by parts of the persona that the individual may not fully understand or even recognize. The 8th chapter is What I Carry Forward, Healing Tools. In essence, the message woven through chapters 5, 6, and 7 is simple and yet profound. It begins by pointing out the primary purpose we all share, which is that we stay connected to the love, God, our essence. Once the primary purpose becomes conscious, perception's clear. Goals that had previously generated stress and kept us trapped in distorted patterns are discarded in favor of a new enlightened goal. We are now able to claim our power over past conditioning and external demands. We find we are consciously creating the life we were originally designed to live, which guarantees living more abundantly with freedom, joy, and purpose. So now we'll begin with chapter 5. Our perception of the world comes from our own mind. After sharing my story with you, including telling you about my demons, I began asking myself if everything I believed about myself was actually true. My answer was that yes, these stories were actually true insofar as the events actually happened. The pain was real, the abuse was real. However, the conclusions I drew about who I was because of those experiences were not true. Negative conclusions that had shaped my identity for years began giving way to the glimmer of a thought that I was not damaged, not unworthy, and not inferior to others. I was whole, worthy, and perfect as I was wonderfully made. I learned about perception later, first in college and then more fully by using the tools I now teach. Yet even after I had begun to form healthy ideas about myself, those healthy ideas remained intellectual only. In my heart, I still not believed they applied to me. It was not until I began a deeper questioning into the stories I had been telling myself that something began to shift. I discovered that questioning my thoughts was not dangerous. It was essential to my healing. It was time to stop repeating old stories and start uncovering the truth of who I really am. The Greek word episteme, I probably pronounced that wrong, means,
Epistemology.
yeah, I don't have the ology on the end of it, but episteme, it means true knowledge. It asks two simple but powerful questions. What do we really know? And how do we know that it's true? So often we believe something simply because someone told us, especially if that person was an authority figure in our life. Philosophers have wrestled with these questions for centuries. Socrates believed we should always examine what we think we know, even when it's uncomfortable. Many philosophers agree that our beliefs are built on earlier beliefs, layer upon layer, until we forget where they come from. Over time, our experiences and emotional wounds quietly shape the way we see the world. Our senses do not simply record reality, they interpret it. This explains why two people can experience the same situation and walk away with completely different interpretations. Our brains filter what we see and hear through past experiences and stored beliefs. In the case of optical illusions, while the image does not change, our perception of the image appears to shift when we shift our focus. I've seen this play out in real life. During a workshop, a woman assumed that a man was being rude because he didn't look at me while I was speaking to him. In truth, he was deeply inward, struggling with his own feelings of inadequacy. The woman saw disrespect. I saw quiet listening. The man felt shame. Three realities, one moment. Our minds prioritize what we pay attention to based on our goals. A goal creates stress, and the stress drives perception and behavior. When a goal is canceled, stress softens, whereupon clarity can return. Over time, we are trained into accepting beliefs the same way hypnosis works, through repetition and authority. As children, we absorb what we are told because we do not yet have the ability to question it. Most caregivers mean well, passing along what they themselves believe to be true. However, not everything we absorb belongs to us. Healing requires gently removing what is false. Both spirituality and science point to the same core truth. Scripture says God is love, and that we are made in God's image. Physics says we are energy. If that feels abstract, consider something simple. Hold a newborn. Most people describe that presence with words like awe and peace, tenderness, and love. That state is not something we earn later in life. It's who we are at the beginning. Love is our original nature. When we operate from fear or hostility, our perception narrows and distorts. I have learned that when I am upset or afraid, I am probably not seeing clearly. But when I return to calm, when I reconnect with love, I see more accurately. That is when I function from my true being. Perhaps the scriptural sentence, "Eye have not seen nor ear heard," means that some truths cannot be accessed through fear-based perception. Socrates says, do not focus on who is right, focus on what is true. What shapes our lives is the content of our minds. When I began questioning my thoughts instead of believing them automatically, my world changed. As my thinking shifted, my perception shifted. And as my perception shifted, my life began to change. This is how healing happens, not by force, but by seeing differently. With truth, we can begin to reweave the tapestry of our lives one breath at a time. Reality bends to the stories we carry. When we quiet the old voices, release the driven goals, and return to the love that breathed us into being, the world rearranges itself around our healing. Change the mind, and the universe opens, truth revealing itself one breath at a time. So I'll stop there. That one's, I've moved from my telling you my story in the first 4 chapters to now explaining a little bit about how perception works and how we see things and how our goals drive, our stress or whatever, and drives our behavior. So let's stop on that before we go to the next chapter, which is on being conditioned to behave a certain way. And does anybody have any comments or questions or rebuttals or whatever?
I will simply say that I read that part yesterday, and it's absolutely just really, really, really well written, play-by-play breakdown of what we do here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Has anybody had the experience of perceiving something a certain way and then realizing that your perception was not what was actually going on?
No, I've never had that happen, honey. It's the state of the world, really. And the cleanup process is definitely life-changing.
Yeah.
I particularly like the way you phrased that one thought that you put forward, that love cannot be perceived through the hostile, fearful mind. Just what's true just never shows up in that hostile, fearful space. It's such a big piece of information to digest.
Okay, we'll move on. Chapter 6, are we conditioned to behave? Oh, go ahead, Terry.
Well, I can offer just one little piece that was kind of interesting. So the very first time I come to Heartland, Michael comes and picks me up in that old blue van, I think it was, and bring me back from the airport. We're kind of sizing each other up, eyeballing each other right up the road. He's wondering, what have I got now? And I'm wondering, where am I at now? It's like,
In the wilderness, lost.
yeah. And so we get there to Heartland, and we have a meeting there at what was that? Truly Helpful was at the center where everybody's kitchen debt.
Eternal Sport,
Eternal Sport. The house where we would eat at, not the big place. House. But anyway, so it was like a little gathering that evening, and it was the first time that I met Patrick and Julie, and I had a little bit of history, not much. And Patrick came strolling up, and what I saw was him wearing like these bib overalls, and then the conversation was unfolding, and I was looking around and taking things in. And he mentioned his military experience, And as soon as he did, when I turned back to look at him, his clothes were a camouflage military outfit. I mean, I about fell out of my chair. I didn't say anything about it because I thought maybe I would be perceived as going insane. But I had created this image. That's one. It was extremely dramatic. But I had created this picture in my mind of Patrick as this country hillbilly with bib overalls on, and then with that one word connected him to the military, shifted the whole dynamic. He had camouflage clothes on, military looking clothes on. So,
Which one matched actuality, Terry?
pardon me?
Which image matched actuality?
Actuality was, well, that's a good question.
I mean, was he wearing military fatigues or?
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was really wearing military fatigues. That was actually. And, it was just like, I was going to go a little deeper, but yeah, the first one was this preconceived idea I had created in my mind about him and who he was and what was going on. But the actuality was he was completely, that was completely different.
So Hasty doesn't wear military fatigues, is what your brain is producing its reality from, is it?
Well, the first part was that he was an Ozark Mountain country boy with the old bib overalls on.
Right.
But the reality was he was a military, ex-military guy or whatever he was, that when he had on his camouflage fatigues and all that. That was the reality of it. Does that make sense?
Powerful example. Yeah, it's right on.
Excellent.
Exactly.
It was extremely powerful. I never forgot it. And that's been quite a while. I can see it just like it was yesterday. The old couch in there, the people, it's like the whole image, the experience is just so profound. And I can only offer my guess or my spin on it is that it was an initiation of some kind for me to step into that energy there, that energetic world. I created a super powerful example of something that unique and mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I have an example that takes it into the arena of where conflicts happen, and this has only happened to me once, and this goes back probably 30 years or more ago. I remember that I'm really teaching the forgiveness work, and I had a conflict with someone, and my mind had the whole picture and the whole story about how the conflict was about them. And instead of continuing in the conflict, I stopped for a minute, took a breath, went in and canceled the goal that was involved in that situation. And literally an instant later, I could not remember, fathom, or even imagine how my mind made it their fault, because it was so clear in my mind now that this was mine instead of belonging to that other person. It was the same kind of shift you're talking about, like from the camo to the plain bib overalls to camo. It was that kind of a shift. And, as I say, I couldn't even fathom, I couldn't have made up how I imagined it was theirs. When I canceled the goal, the component of it that was mine just became so clear that, so that's one of those that I've used a lot through the years to take me back and clean up my own mind.
It was an undeniable demonstration for me. Undeniable.
I hear you. Good one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll give you one that, just like the story that I was telling, where each of us, of the three, we had a different reality. And this one involves you, Michael, and I'm sure I shared it with you. When I guess it was the first time that we went on the road, and I was organizing in the van, and I had asked Michael, where do you want something put? And he said, it doesn't matter. The van's more important to you than it is, or the van is more important to you than me, or something like that. And what I heard was, how do you think the van is more important than you are? And I was mad for like 3 days before I realized he was saying the organization of the van was more important to me than the organization of the van was to him.
I
And it was
remember
just,
that one.
and it was just like, oh my gosh. And so, you know, I kept my reality, stirred up my emotions and my own thoughts about it that wasn't even true. And it didn't even need to be a conflict. I mean, it was like Michael was just saying, however you want to organize it's fine, but that's not what my brain heard. And that happens in everyday conversations with people. They say something and their brain twists it to where our past has been, that we're, you know, blamed for something or whatever, and then we create our own craziness out of it. Anybody else?
There's a quote, an interesting quote from the CIA. They did research on human perception. You know, they're, who knows how many millions they spent, but they're working to get their analysts and such to have the best perceptions that they can. And so here's what they said. Quote in there, and they're published, and you can access this quote on our website. Perception is demonstrably an active rather than a passive process. It constructs rather than records reality. Perception implies understanding as well as awareness. It is a process of inference in which people construct their own version of reality on the basis of information provided through the five senses. So there's the conclusion that the CIA came to. Each person constructs their own version, and we're calling the perceptual output of the mind reality. And the fact is, we can live in actuality. We don't have to live in these realities, especially the repeating, painful, traumatic, messy ones. We can clean it up. And of course, there's only one place on the planet that I know of in all the years I've been doing this research that you'll find the exact technology of how to clean it up. And that is the first century Aramaic forgiveness process. And it's interesting, you go back 2,000 years ago, and there's this situation where Yeshua is telling a group of disciples the work that they need to do. And the larger group of the disciples, they don't say exactly how many, but the larger group of the disciples, when he told them that, replied, too hard a saying, who can hear it? And then what it records is they walked with him no more. They all left. And the circumstances, the situation was so disturbed over that he actually turned to Peter and the other 12 disciples who stayed and said, are you guys going to leave too? That when these pained constructs come up, they create such a roar, such a stir, that most people just leave or check out emotionally. So it's a really, you know, the key point being, the most important thing to do is to do the work of putting the pen to the paper and collapsing those false perceptions. And when you cancel the goal that's driving them, and that false construct of the mind collapses, what happens is, just like the 9/11 towers collapsed in on their own footprint, everybody remembers that visual? If you have a construct of your mind that's false and you cancel the goal that's driving it, it collapses in on its own footprint, on its own source. And then you have access to your own unconscious mind. You get access to those dynamics that otherwise are kept hidden. And that's how the mind is cleaned up. But most people say, too hard a saying, who can hear it? I'm out of here. Don't tell me to cancel my goal. I want what I want when I want it. And it's their fault that I don't have, and you know, all the craziness that happens. And everybody's got a story about why they don't have to do it. It's somebody else's fault. And until people wake up to, oh, I actually have to do this work if I want things to change, it's a tough road. And it certainly creates a lot of stir. Like Yeshua said to the other 12 disciples, are you guys going to leave too? There was so much disturbance in the field around being told they were going to have to go inside themselves and clean up their own minds. So thank you for doing a gentle introduction in your book to how that's accomplished, and then showing us how to resolve it as it unfolds.
Thank you. So chapter 6, are we conditioned to behave a certain way? Understanding how we learn. For much of my life, I did not understand why I behaved the way I did. It was not until a psychology class introduced different learning theories that I finally recognized myself. I could see how many of my behaviors had been learned in moments of fear. Over time, those reactions became habits, patterns I used automatically, even when there was no danger anymore. At the most basic level, all living beings want balance. When something knocks us off center, our minds and bodies try to restore that balance. If we learn healthy ways to cope, we recover. If our learning comes from fear or pain, we stay stuck in stress, anxiety, or even illness. This need for balance is not just physical, it is emotional. When we ignore what is really going on inside us, pretending we are fine, we block truth and create more problems. I have learned that when we do not face our feelings, we cannot change our patterns. We stay reactive instead of responsive. Over time, that imbalance shows up in our relationships, our health, and our sense of peace. Much of our behavior comes from a mix of what we have inherited and what we have learned. When a present experience reminds us of a similar experience that occurred in the past, the two experiences may find themselves stored together in our mind in the same way that two similar documents might be stored together in a file folder. Dr. Michael Ryce calls this the file folder effect. We then react to the present experience as if the past experience was happening again. Another way that patterns form is through association. When two things happen together, fear and yelling, love and safety, for instance, the brain links them and they are placed together in a file folder. If a person yells, fear may be automatically felt. If one feels safe, one might associate that feeling of safety with being loved. These file folder pairings may feel ingrained, but they can be pulled apart. Pairings and patterns can be unlearned. These pairings and patterns can be passed down through the generations. For instance, research shows that if a child is raised being yelled at or physically abused, that child will be inclined either to abuse or yell as a parent, or might live her life handicapped by a feeling of powerlessness. We also learn to link events through consequences. If something brings relief or approval, we repeat it. If it brings pain, we avoid it. I saw this gently at work when my son was in kindergarten. His teacher rewarded good manners with simple recognition. The result was not just better behavior, it was pride. And that feeling of pride stayed with my son long after he left kindergarten. Powerful as negative patterns are, they need not be our destiny. Having been learned, they can be unlearned. I noticed this file folder phenomenon in myself after my second marriage ended. For years, I had learned to be perfect to avoid conflict. Long after the relationship was over, I was still living by those rules until I became aware of them. Awareness gave me back my choice. Our past shapes us, but it does not own us. Our thoughts affect our bodies, our emotions, and our behavior. When we live from fear or hostility, our responses follow that energy. When we act from love, everything changes. One of the most powerful tools I have learned is that of canceling goals that no longer serve us. Unmet goals create stress. Stress keeps us out of balance. In Aramaic, the word forgiveness means to cancel. When a goal is canceled, the origin of the fear or anger can finally be recognized and released. Change does not come from suppressing behavior. It comes from understanding what drives it. When we see our patterns clearly and face them with honesty, we can choose again. Most of us want to heal, but we might not know how to get beyond what is blocking our healing. One block might simply be that we refuse to look at painful issues. The gentlest and most effective way to overcome this is to connect to our chosen ideal: Source, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, love, God, Ruka, etc. Clarity, compassion, and strength to change will follow naturally once we have opened ourselves to this divine resource. Transformation begins not by using only the intellect to fix ourselves, but by remembering who we really are in relation to our source. Are we conditioned to behave a certain way? Yes, but we are not trapped by it. So I'll pause there before I go to the next chapter. Any comments or questions? Can you see situations in your life where you were conditioned to behave a certain way and then automatically did that?
One of the impacts that, when we just finished doing the workshop, Healing Through Relationships, over the last several weeks, and one of the places where this file folder effect I think is really important to watch is that if we have a relationship with someone, that relationship can be very quickly destroyed or become repulsive if there are things within ourselves when we language out of projection instead of owning, oh, this is what's moving in me, languaging, you made me feel. Then if it's a destructive or negative feeling, through the file folder effect, we wired into our brain's image of that person, and all of a sudden that person starts to become repulsive to us. And there may be no reason whatsoever except that the two files happen to fire at the same time. So it's really important in relationships that you want to keep clean and clear that you recognize if you have bags of garbage of blame and sadness and fear and rage and unresolved issues, that if they happen to come up especially in relationships with a partner, that you take responsibility immediately, clean that up, and then consciously, purposely hook your brain's image of your partner up to wondrous, wonderful, delightful things about your partner, rather than allowing those other issues when they come up to wire themselves in and create that kind of repulsion. It's really an important thing to do in relationships, because of course we all carry hostility and fear. It's inevitable sooner or later our hostilities or fears are going to come up in each other's presence. The key is to recognize that if I let that become unconsciously hooked, I can destroy a relationship that way. Or others can, subtly brainwash one by just subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, pushing blame over in a certain direction to make that other person, unpalatable. And the person who's pushing, whatever they're pushing, to make them the perfect one, the ideal one. So it's important to recognize that file folder effect and really be conscious of it in every arena in order to keep all relationships clean.
Chapter 7. Oh, go ahead. I thought somebody unmuted there. So chapter 7 is how our brain builds our personality. When I was a child, I thought people were simply born a certain way. Some were shy, some were loud, some got angry easily, and others seemed untouched by life. It took me many years and a great deal of personal work to realize something far deeper. Personality is not fixed. It is shaped over time by our thoughts, our experiences, our bodies, our emotions, and the choices we make. As I began working with people in healing settings, and as I reflected on my own life, I saw this truth clearly. Who we become is not just about who we were born with or what we were born with. It is about what we live through and how we learn to survive. Understanding this changed everything for me. It gave me hope, not only for myself, but for others. This chapter explores how personality develops through what is called neurobiological model of personality, the way the brain and the body work together to shape who we are. When we understand this, we are no longer powerless. We've gained the ability to make real lasting change. Personality is made up of the way we think, feel, and act, and yet it is not something a surgeon could ever find in the body, like a heart or a lung. I have come to see personality as something more like light shining through stained glass. The light itself is always the same, but the colors, patterns, and distortions depend on the glass through which it passes. Our glass is shaped by our genetics, our experiences, our beliefs, and our emotional history. How we see the world depends on how we respond to it. It determines how we respond to it. Are we seeing life through love or through fear and hostility? We cannot always control what happens around us, but we can choose how we see it. Scripture tells the story of Peter walking on water toward the Master. As long as his focus remained steady, he walked on water. The moment he focused on the storm, he began to sink. Life works the same way. Storms may not change, but whether we walk or sink depends on where we place our attention. As Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, I probably said that wrong too, observed, joy is the most infallible sign of the presence of God. When we live connected to that presence, it shows in our personality, our behaviors, and our lives. Personality cannot be explained by one factor alone. It is shaped by the interaction of body and mind, past and present, conscious and unconscious, emotional and spiritual. Many of our behaviors are driven by parts of ourselves that we are not even aware of. That is why change can feel so difficult. But here's the truth I have learned. The issue is always within, and therefore the solution is within as well. Behavior is the effect. Healing comes when we address the cause. The word persona means mask. Removing the mask does not heal us. True transformation takes place when we gently tend to what lies beneath it. Our brain and body are in constant conversation. When we're anxious, our stomach tightens. When we feel joy, our body feels lighter. Emotions do not exist only in the mind. They live in the body. Ancient cultures understood this long before modern science could prove it. The Greeks spoke of humors. Traditional Chinese medicine links emotions to organs. Rudolf Steiner taught that the human being is made up of physical, emotional, energetic, and spiritual dimensions. Today, brain imaging confirms what each of these men sensed all along. The mind and body function as one integrated system. Ivan Pavlov showed us that behavior can be learned through association. People learn this way as well. A child who grows up hearing arguments when the television is loud may later feel anxious merely at the sound of a raised voice, even if nothing is wrong. Donald Hebb summarized this notion of linked stimuli perfectly when he said, neurons that fire together wire together. When fear and conflict repeatedly occur together, the brain links them. Once again, Dr. Michael Ryce and I call this the file folder effect. When something in the present resembles the past, the brain automatically pulls out the old file and we react without realizing why. One of the hardest truths I have had to face is how deeply trauma shapes personality. Stress, neglect, or abuse, especially in childhood, do not affect emotions alone. They alter brain development. Survival patterns become identity. A child may grow guarded, anxious, angry, or withdrawal, not because something's wrong with them, but because their nervous system learned to survive that way. Trauma influences how genes are expressed. In this way, pain can shape not only how we feel, but who we believe we are. Dr. Michael Ryce taught me that thoughts generate emotions and emotions drive behavior. Those emotions are energy. Love strengthens us, whereas fear and hostility slowly destabilize us. Over time, repeated emotional patterns can solidify into a persona that is not our true self, but is a survival response. Neuroscientist Candace Pert discovered that emotions are stored throughout the body, not just in the brain. That is why emotional pain can feel physical. Our bodies remember what our minds have not yet healed. Can we change? Yes. Our thoughts influence our biology. Even if we inherit certain tendencies, they do not control us unless we agree with them. We are not condemned by our past. Through awareness, choice, and the practice of Aramaic forgiveness, we can change. We are not born broken, we are shaped. And what is shaped can be reshaped. At our core, we are love. When we forget this, we suffer. When we remember, we heal. Life keeps flowing like a river. We cannot stop its movement, but we can choose who we are as we step into it. That choice, made again and again, is where transformation lives. We are not our trauma. We are not our habits. We are not our pain. We are a process. We are potential. We are becoming. And I'll pause again and see if anybody has anything that they would like to add. Everyone's quiet. Okay, we'll go on. Oh, go ahead, Sally.
When you were reading your part, when you were talking about focus, I was reminded, I had a flash upon the days in around 1987. I was doing ropes course facilitating, and I was teaching people how to walk on a log that is, say, like a log across a river or a suspended log that swings. And one of the interesting things was watching people when they would look down at the ground and the log swinging, they would fall like every time. And the fall was just step down. It wasn't dangerous. But when they would focus on where they were going,
Yeah.
they would just beautifully and easily walk the log. And then it reminded me of a fire walk and other physical experiential things that really demonstrate to people how this works. So thanks. I'm having all kinds of memories and reinforcements and hallelujahs. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input. Okay, Chapter 8, What I Carry Forward, Healing Tools. From Chapter 5, our perception of the world comes from our own mind. What I got was love is the stuff we are made of, regardless of what we have experienced in life that might convince us otherwise. When we operate from any energy other than love, for example, hostility or fear, our perception becomes distorted, and once in this state, we incorrectly perceive what is happening around us. Since it is our beliefs that generate our thoughts, and since it is these thoughts that generate how we feel about a situation, person, or event, we must trace our thoughts backward to uncover their origin. Using the reality management wake-up sheet will help with this. Once we have found the source of a belief, we will see that our strong beliefs and feelings are built on memories and past experiences. We will understand that our feelings are more about ourselves than about another person, event, or the actual world itself. We will see why we have been so attached to a particular outcome, the goal. Dr. Michael Ryce likes to say that we have to be out of our mind to gain a direct experience of the actual world. Tracing strong feelings back to their origins does just this. It leads us out of our thinking mind and into our hearts. And it is from the heart, from love, that the actual world can show itself. Once we have had insight into the origins of our strong feelings and preferences, we understand the value of canceling the goals. Even if these have been reasonable and good goals, these can be reinstated later through a healed perspective. Canceling a goal might include releasing our need to be right. It certainly involves reconnecting to the love within ourselves. Once love is reinstated, we are in a position to see things differently, and changing our minds becomes far more possible than it had been before. It is at this point that we set an enlightened goal. This goal may closely resemble the original goal, but our relationship to and feelings about this goal will be from a healed and therefore loving perspective. Since the content of our own mind is what builds the world we perceive, changing our mind can lead to changing ourselves and our world. One might ask if we ever get to the point where we see completely clearly. I would answer no, though acting from the perspective of love will always bring us nearer the truth. From chapter 6, Are We Conditioned to Behave a Certain Way, and Understanding How We Learn, the driving impetus behind all behavior is a goal. And if there is a disruption in the process of attaining the goal, then usually there is some form of stress that manifests as irritation or some form of upset. Setting a goal establishes stress in the mind that in turn manifests in our behavior. As the differential between the way things are seen, our perception, and the way a person wants them to be, our goal, increases, then stress will rise. Dr. Michael Ryce observes that the key therapeutic tool for relieving stress is the canceling of goals. From ancient texts, the Aramaic term shabag, translated as to forgive, actually means to cancel. Aramaic forgiveness technology allows direct access to our goal-related dissociated states and empowers us to take the destructive charge out of the internal causes and past conditioning. It is at this point that untoward negative effects will be lessened or eliminated. In other words, Aramaic forgiveness allows access to and removal of the anger and fear that do not belong in the human structure. From chapter 7, How Our Brain Builds Our Personality, I now know myself to be energy and that I radiate and absorb frequencies in tune with my energy. I realize how much of my life has been spent in fear, guilt, and anger, and how that affected my body. I now know that while my goals generate emotions and drive my behavior, I can change my thoughts, cancel my goals, and live more consciously. I am in charge of my life. What I have experienced or done is not who I am. I am love, created in the image of God, love. I can drop my mask and live life more abundantly. That possibility is exhilarating. However, I vow to continue to examine whatever underlies my false beliefs, addressing cause in order to change effect. I am free from my past. My teachers and sources are all saying the same thing. Be connected to love, God and my essence, cancel my goals, take back my power, and create my own abundant life. And now I wrote a poem. It's called My Promise Remains, from the Heart of God. When shadows surround you and tears fill your eyes, when the voices around you speak only lies, I am your refuge, your calm in the storm, holding your heart when it's torn. The one you've been seeking has been with you all along. I've loved you forever before time began, and I promise, my child, I will hold your hand. You have my word, you dwell in my love. Every trial draws us closer in heart. I'm always with you right from the start. So close your eyes and rest in my grace. This promise I give, no world can replace. Until all things are made new, my promise remains. When you feel yourself falling, just call out my name. I've written your soul in the light of my flame. Without me there's longing, but with me you're whole. My love is your anchor, your shelter, your goal. So close your eyes and lean into me. This love you feel is eternity. And with every truth I speak to you, my promise remains. An additional deeper healing practice, another of Dr. Rice's tools, is the Mind Shifter, explained below. It's recommended that you dedicate at least 2 uninterrupted hours, depending on the intensity of the issue you are facing, to use this tool. For teaching purposes, I'm going to use Mind Shifter number 2, found in the list below this exercise, which is, it is safe and healing for me to let go of the past and change. I'm going to use this example to get us started. Instructions: divide a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper in half from top to bottom. On the left side of the paper, you write the Mind Shifter statement recommended for you. On the right side of the paper, write whatever thoughts or feelings your Mind Shifter resonates in you. In my case, I immediately argued, it is not safe and healing for me to let go of the past and change. You will find that most of your responses will be arguments against the statement written on the left. Put down whatever surfaces. Resist censoring. Describe body sensations, emotions, cravings, ravings, wishes, curses, avoidance thoughts, joy thoughts, whether it seems related or not. Do this until you run out of thoughts. Then write the Mind Shifter again on the left side of the page. And again on the right, write down your refutations and arguments against the Mind Shifter statement. Do this until you experience a satisfactory level of completion. That completion will not necessarily mean you're finished with the Mind Shifter, as many issues may need to be revisited, perhaps several times. Once complete, you realize you have now a record of your thought disorders. Choose which tools you would like to use to examine and heal each of the thoughts written on the right side of the page. You might choose the reality management tool, also called the wake-up sheet, the codependence worksheet, my commitment, the power person worksheet, the apology tool, or some other tool to use toward healing those thought disorders. And then I gave a link for the downloads. The list of the 13 mind shifters that I used for this book, Healing Generations, and this is included in our list that we send out to the Mind Shifter group every month where it grows. This is the 13 that I used in the book. 1, it is safe and healing for me to be out of my mind. 2, it is safe and healing for me to let go of the past and change. 3, healing generational weakness by communicating honestly with authority and in my relationships is safe, nurturing, and healing. Number 4, healing the dishonesty and fantastical beliefs of my generations brings honor and healing to my family. 5, it is safe for me to invite the darkest parts of my family history to come to awareness and heal. 6, family dynamics of pain, disappointment, betrayal, and abuse are safe to confront and forgive. 7, I am an important and integral expression of my family system of life, and I bring love to the earth. 8, it is safe and healing for me to stay conscious and decode all the hurts from my past and heal by maintaining the active presence of love and forgiveness. 9, if my power person lived in overwhelm, I had the stability of mind and being to embrace and heal those family dynamics. 10, it is natural for me to spend quiet time with myself, attuned to and actively heal all generational storylines. 11, touching, connecting, and caring are natural and true in my family system. 12, my family of origin, specifically blank, is, are, and always have been there for me. 13, I open the generational barriers in my mind and invite blank to be fully exposed and healed. You will find, as I did, that many emotions and sensations will come forward during this process, including feelings of fear, sadness, anger, and pain. You may also experience unwelcome physical sensations, which are the body's responses to emotions such as anxiety, illness, and pain. Each of these feelings and physical manifestations is related to a goal we have set, such as wanting to be safe, to be honored, or to feel important or appreciated. A painful memory is not the present moment. It is a story the mind still whispers. You need not empower the echo. Receive it without resistance and let love do what love always does, release you. And we're almost at the end of the hour, and we're getting ready to go into the third section, which is all about the healing, the generations, and being aware. And then I do worksheets on each of the 15 things that I said in chapter 2. Who was I? And then 5 measures. And so we'll go into that on Monday. Does anybody have anything they want to say or add before we call it? Go ahead, Melissa.
Hey, I just wanted to say I can so relate to everything you said today in so many ways. And I just wanted to add that, over the years, as both you guys know, actually, one of my biggest deals have been anger. And in my mind, I was just so certain that this person or that situation, was just flat wrong. And they were doing this or doing that. And of course, anybody would get angry. I that's the way my life lived for years. And one day I finally actually heard, it took me a few times, when Michael said to me, "You're not angry because of what someone's done. You're angry because you have anger inside of you."
Right.
And like I said, it took me a few times to hear that before I actually heard it. And once I did, though, everything you just said today is just so amazingly true, because then I looked within and, did the steps to heal myself. And yeah, there's people out there that can say and do things and all that kind of stuff, but I just don't get angry anymore because it wasn't about them. It was about me. And something else I wanted to add was you said something about, do we ever get to the point where we're done fixing ourselves or whatever? You didn't say it like that, but that's what I heard in my head. So, I just wanted to say, of course, I agree with that. I don't think we ever are, get to the point where we're done. But I know in my case, when I started down that path, my life has just got better and better and better and better as I deal with the things that come up. I've not only gotten my life better, but I've gotten so much better at dealing with things. And like you said, it's just, everything is really about the way you see it, not what reality really is, and that there's nothing out there that we can't look at and say, that's not what I want, or that's not what I like, whatever, how you want to put it, and change it. And I just want to say, again, like I said, everything you said just struck a chord with me, and the whole process really worked. I'm living proof of that, and I appreciate both of you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you too.
Nice work, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,